riches according to Scripture is not the car you drive or the house you live in. I believe pastors have this deposit to offer there. Now, we can get intimidated. Why would they want to sit with me? Like, you're one of the most valuable pieces that they could ever have in their life.
You got to start figuring it out. What does some random dude in Idaho have to offer some guy that's playing in the Super Bowl? And I thought, I actually could be the one person in the world that is praying for their marriage, for their babies, for their career, for their investments, and for the desires in their heart by name. And I realized that's what pastors do.
Yeah.
That's what makes us unique.
Yeah, I love to talk about the idea in our world today that everyone thinks all winning is the same, that if I hit the number or hit the goal or I make the purchase or close the deal, that's holistic winning.
Yeah.
And I was watching you as we were in this context with leaders, you and I being in some same rooms and mutually respecting each other, but getting to spend a little more time together the last few days. I just began to hear some things. It's kind of like, you can hear a note, right? Musicians hear a note, communicators listen, and I could hear some things coming out. And so I just thought it would be a blessing to those listening to listen to some of your journey. So I want to first of all tell us just a little bit about Oceans Church and what God's done. It's pretty miraculous what you've seen happen in just the last few years, really.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you, Pastor Jeff. It's an honor to be on with you guys today. Big fans of both of you, and Milestone Church is, I think, maybe one of the prettiest church buildings in America, and I think you give even the most secure pastors a good dose of jealousy when we walk into your property. But just honored to be with you guys. Yeah, I'm originally from California. I got saved when I was 18, and married the pastor's daughter when I was got saved at a church in Boise, Idaho, of all places.
Okay.
And when that experience happened, spent 17 years of my life in Idaho, and then kind of on a word from God and several layers of divine arm twisting from the Holy Spirit. Didn't want to go back to California, and I thought California was going to fall into the ocean. And luckily, when God gave me a dream with the name of our church, He told us to call it Oceans Church.
Yeah.
So I thought, Lord, if California is going to fall into the ocean, let them fall into Oceans Church.
There you go.
And so we started the church in 2018. Church is 6 years old.
Okay. Wow.
It has been a wild ride. I think I made the comment the other night that if you've seen the footage of people outrunning the avalanches on skis, that's kind of what the last 6 years has felt like. Been good problems, a lot of problems that most guys don't have when they start churches, but still challenges nonetheless.
Yeah.
But God's been very kind to us, and I do think that maybe He's been a little bit nicer to us than usual because He knew that if we did not have good success, we were not slugging it out for 10 years. We would have packed up.
Right.
I had a great house, great life in Boise, Idaho that we left to move to California. So we asked the Lord, God, if we're going to be here, let us see some great impact. And it's been a really special last 6 years.
So interesting. You had spiritual heritage in the family.
Yeah.
But then you had a lot of challenges. I mean, your parents divorced when you were younger. So then you kind of had that influence there, those seeds there, but you yourself not coming to Christ till you were 18, right? So you had some spiritual heritage, but it was at 18 where you made that decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. My grandma and grandpa were missionaries.
Yeah.
So they went to Japan and China. My grandma was mentored by Amy Sylvan McPherson, the Foursquare movement.
Yeah.
And my grandpa got saved at a William Branham healing crusade.
Wow.
Indiana. And saw a guy, or really a lady, on a deathbed stretcher. And he pointed at her and said, God, if you're real, send that little preacher over there to heal that lady. He said about 70 seconds after he prayed that prayer, William Branham walked through the crowd at one of the soccer stadiums or baseball stadiums and pulled this lady that was on death's doorstep off a stretcher. And he went into the bathroom, threw his tobacco pipe away, his flask, found a church that Sunday. And about a month later, my grandma was going through that church on furlough.
Wow.
And they met and got married. My dad was born in Japan, and they were there. And so they joked that he was the best thing ever made in Japan. But my dad was kind of the rebellious missionary kid. I would say that my observation of the older generation is they thought they had to sacrifice their family for the ministry.
Yeah.
So my dad grew up on a boarding school island.
Yeah.
Another island.
Right.
And his sister did too.
Right.
And I think that's why we had a lot of rebellion in that generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, thankfully our generation realizes that God sacrificed his family.
Right.
So we don't have to sacrifice
Really
ours.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's kind of skipped a generation, but I feel like, I was the only one out of the grandkids to kind of pick up the ministry baton, got saved. And it's been a wild ride for sure.
Wow.
My wife says it's interesting, obviously every kid has their own will.
Yeah.
There's not a formula,
Right.
but most of the time people don't reject Jesus and the church
Yeah.
because of the church house.
Yes.
It's usually because of their house.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
And that has a bigger impact than even like ministry life. I know we have a lot of people listening and care a lot about that.
Yes. Right.
And I always just try to tell them that it's more about what happens in your home
100%.
than it is what happens with maybe your assignment
100%.
in ministry.
I agree.
Right.
I think I see my in-laws. They raised 3 incredible kids. I married their middle daughter.
Yeah.
They were my pastors when I got saved in Idaho. And I'm like, man, I'm going to marry my boss's daughter. I will never get fired.
Yeah. Good
And it
job
was
security.
Great
Yes.
job security. So we got married, but all of her siblings, they all love Jesus, never
amazing.
walked away. I think my wife's, I don't know, her spiritual genealogy goes back to Gabriel or Michael, I think. If you go on ancestry.com, I think you can trace it back there.
Yeah.
And my family's the opposite. You could trace this back to a fallen angel probably, but no, just incredible in-laws. And I would say, Ken and Connie Wild, pastor phenomenal church, 43 years, just handed it over
amazing.
to their son. And all their kids love Jesus. All their grandkids love Jesus. And I would say out of all the churches I've traveled to in the world, my in-laws are some of the most pure pastors of not just the people in the church, but the way they raised their kids was
Yeah.
just really,
amazing.
really exceptional.
Well, can we go for a minute, if it's okay, Pastor Jeff? Can we go out? You're talking there about your call and your new resource Win with People. You're trying to help young leaders identify a call. I know a lot of young leaders are, what does that look like? Does God just like walk into a room and tell you what to do? You talked about getting this call from God. Can you kind of walk us through what that process was like for you, how you stewarded that call, the timing? Because a lot of people think, well, when I get a call, I just leave everything and jump to it, almost like you were saying with your grandparents. Talk a little bit about your journey and what that looked like for you.
Man, I think, a couple things. I think God He doesn't waste any of our experiences. That's the first thing I tell people is I think a lot of times we think if I'm going to serve the call of God, if I surrender really, he's going to make me do something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to move somewhere I don't want to live. I'm going to have to love some people I don't want to love. I'm going to have to marry someone I'm not attracted to.
Right.
I'm going to live in some mission field. I'm going to hate my life.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we have this false perception that God, for whatever reason, is going to ask you to do something that you're not good at or ask you to do something that you're not passionate for.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that somewhere in our calling is the intersection of our passions, of our trauma, of our past experiences, and with our giftings. And I think that the outside X factor of those things would be timing.
Right.
So for me, I think my parents getting divorced at 7, I went to like 12 schools in like 4 years, learning how to make friends with anybody and everybody. I grew
Which
up
is
in
a lost skill, really, today.
My wife was the same way. They moved around and then she married a church planter. So it kind of worked out.
It's
worked out.
amazing
Yeah.
because you're good at making friends with anybody.
And you have to.
And I went to like low income, we were like in the projects of Los
Wow.
Angeles.
Yeah.
My mom didn't graduate high school, so we were inner city, rough area. We lived in the suburbs of LA. So if you couldn't afford to live in Section 8 housing in LA, they relocated you to the high desert. So
Yeah.
I'm from Palmdale, Lancaster,
Yeah.
which is the Nazareth of
Right.
California.
True.
It's the home of Afro Man and Paul George.
Yeah.
So I'm the third person to ever make it out of the Antelope Valley. But that was the trauma of my upbringing. Saw a lot of crazy things, but developed people skills through that. Developed a love for connecting with people. And then when I got to high school, I ended up becoming, got involved with, I was a prom king and got involved with snowboarding, got good at that. And when I got saved, I thought, so my encounter with Jesus was at a summer camp, 2001. Had this encounter, and I hear the Lord say, I want you to move to Idaho, live with your dad, go to Bible college. Now, I knew it was God, because I would never think of anything that stupid.
Yeah.
Didn't like Idaho.
Right.
Didn't like my dad. And Bible college, I don't think I've ever met a cool Bible college graduate. So I thought, God, you got your kids mixed up.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but all I could say is that when you really have a God experience with Jesus Christ, his presence is so divine, so glorious, better than drugs, sex, any of the stuff that I ever did before, that I was willing to do whatever it took to maintain that experience.
Yeah.
So I said, Lord, if you promise that my whole family, named them all by names, if they all come to know you the way that I've come to know you, I'll do whatever you want me to do in life.
Wow.
And I didn't hear the audible voice, but I heard a very, very internal loud whisper that said, Mark, if you give me your best, I'll give you my best. So I moved up. I thought I was going to serve a year or two, like serve my time.
Yeah.
And then go back to California, become a pro snowboarder, travel the world.
Right.
And it was in that first year, we went to Portland, Oregon. We went to a big youth conference called Generation Unleashed. Crazy Aussie preacher named Russell Evans from Planet Shakers was preaching. I couldn't tell you what he preached on.
Yeah.
It could have been a message for senior citizens with hemorrhoids. I would have responded to that altar call. Heart was beating out of my chest.
Wow.
And I knew that I was supposed to go forward, and I did. And when I got to that altar call, God brought me back to a memory when I was 4 years old. My grandma's living room. And she was telling me missionary stories of doing laundry and rice patties in Japan. And when I was 4 years old, I heard her tell me stories, and I walked to her bathroom in front of her linen closet. And in front of that closet, I heard a voice when I was 4 years old say, Mark, will you be a missionary too? And honestly, I heard it and I just said yes as a 4-year-old. And I forgot that memory until I was 19 years old in Portland, Oregon at that altar call. And he said, Mark, I asked you when you were 4 years old if you'd be my missionary. And you said yes then. Will you still say yes now? And I just started weeping because I forgot this memory.
Yeah.
I knew it was God. And I said yes, and I saw a globe, almost like the globes you see on a teacher's desk.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm getting my assignment. I mean, I'm going to go somewhere international. I'm going to be a missionary with my grandparents. And he said, I'm going to call you to the hardest people group of your generation. I'm going to call you to North America, to people that have everything, that don't think they need me. And you're going to reach people that aren't just down and out. You're going to reach people that are up and out. And as you reach them, you'll reach the ends of the earth. And I was 19 years old, and that was when I knew I was called to ministry. And so I got back, and my youth pastor, Chris Wild, who's now my brother-in-law, he took me under his wing. He's brilliant. He's like Pastor Steve, smartest guy I know. He's like 49 years old. We'll call him 55, if just in case this podcast he listens to it 5 years later. But he smartest guy I know, and just mentored me, loved me, started sending me these campus clubs, and started on junior high campuses, and these little Bible studies that normally had 12 little girls started having 150 kids show up. I would just share my testimony. I do a Fear Factor. Joe Rogan game was kind of big back in that era.
I remember.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, I mean, we were having 300 kids per lunch and meeting in the gymnasiums. And he says, Mark, you have a gift to gather people, and you're an evangelist.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me look at what evangelist means.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading the lyrics to Chris Tomlin songs at this point. I had known nothing about Jesus, but I got thrown into it. And he took me under his wing and eventually became, youth pastor, taught Sunday school, became the chaplain at Boise State for their football team, kind of helped out with that. And we saw a revival. We saw like 10,000 college students get saved, in a 10-year window when I was in Boise State. And from that, I had the opportunity to travel all over the world, go to youth conferences and speak some of the great churches in the world. Been to Australia 17 times and Malaysia and Singapore. And but yeah,
that's the first time we connected was around a group of churches, and you were speaking at our youth. I remember you coming in for that. And so you're in this youth world. I mean, you're building a youth, and you're working youth group there at your church, and then you're working with college students, and you're traveling now, becoming a bit of a voice to youth pastors, and so then where did this, the fulfillment of that, will you be my missionary?
Yeah. Wow.
What happened with that? How did that all come about? Because you're doing great. You're fulfilled. You weren't ambitious about something else. In fact, you could have stayed there the rest of your life, right?
I was planning on it. Yeah, I was absolutely. I loved Idaho. I was in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
We just we're building our dream house. Had our little girls, had a great life. Idaho, if you didn't know, is a lot cheaper than California. So we were really enjoying the old Northwest. But we got married in 2005. And when we got married, my wife, her parents were planters. And she said, Mark, there's two things we never want to do. Is we never want to be lead pastors, and we never want to start a church. My parents did it, and it was admirable and great, but we don't want to do it. It was hell.
Yeah, I mean, I really grabbed a hold of that, right? Because I always said it this way. I was in a conference, church planting, campus ministry, world missions, and I always said church planting on that banner and in that worship service, looked a lot better on the banner
100%.
than it did in real life.
100%.
So it's just, again, that doesn't
challenging.
stop us from doing what
Yeah.
God's called us to do, but people do underestimate what's really involved. And so she grew up with that.
Pastors'
and
kids know more.
They know, they know.
I heard Bill Johnson say that pastors' kids have to pay two prices.
Yeah.
They pay for their mom and dad's calling, and then when they get older, they pay for their own calling.
Yeah.
And so she, they paid the price to be in that world their whole life, live under the microscope. And so she saw the best and the worst. And she loves Jesus, never got bitter towards the church, loves the church, but just said, Mark, we can serve, high capacity, but we'll just serve mom and dad. And then when my brother takes over, we'll serve him. And I love, her brother was my mentor. And so we were happy to do that. And so that was the path we were on. So we agreed to that. And it was 3 years later, I was reading, ironically, Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Church, the story about how he started Saddleback Church, which ironically is like 20 miles from where our church is now.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this book in 2008, and I'm like starting to cry. I'm not an emotional person. I'm like crying reading this book. I'm like, Rochelle, we're going to start a church. She's like, no, we're not. We've talked about that. What are you talking about? It's the stupidest thing you've said. And I said, you got to read this book. She's like, I've read it before. I'm like, read it again. So she starts to read it, and God really starts to knock on her heart too. And our church was healthy and vibrant. I mean, no church is perfect, but I'd say our church is about as healthy as I've ever seen. But we weren't necessarily a church-sending church. We weren't an apostolic hub that we were floating people out. So we never really seen anybody leave that was like celebrated. It was good. We saw people that were disgruntled, power hungry, bitter, whatever. Never saw someone leave on a healthy note. So the idea of even leaving was like, man, this is like sin.
Yeah.
So we said, Lord, we'll do it, but we're going to make it really hard. And this would be my advice for people that feel called to start a church. I think sometimes we make it so easy to leave to do something catastrophically big.
Right.
When we should, on a big thing that's going to change your life, your kid's life, your family's life, I think we need to have some fleeces out there that are validated. In the multitude of counselors, there's safety. So for us, we said, Lord, we'll go anywhere in the world, but our one condition is my in-laws, our pastors, they have to initiate the conversation that you're called to be church planners. If they start that conversation, we'll go anywhere in the world. But if they don't start it, we're not leaving, and we'll never tell them anything.
Right.
So we thought, man, this is smart. Man, this is a smart prayer. I was bragging about how smart my prayer was. I'm like, man, we'll have some grandkids.
Right.
They're not going to ask us to leave.
There you go.
That's smart.
Use the grandkids.
I thought we were
leverage,
safe. And so they're at a conference. It's a year and a half goes by, and they're at a conference, and there's this prophetic lady there named Cindy Jacobs. And she'd been to our church a couple times, actually prayed for me when I was in Bible college, called me out of a room of 1,100 people and prayed things over me then that I'm still doing now.
Wow.
And so she says, how many kids do you guys have again, Ken and Connie? And they said, we have 3 kids. And they go, your middle daughter, she married? Yeah, she's married. This incredible guy, good looking guy. He works out a lot. He's buff, really good looking. I'm just kidding. No, she says, yeah, she's married. And she got up and left the table, and she came back. She said, when I left the table, the Holy Spirit said that your son-in-law is not from Idaho. He's from somewhere else. And they said, yeah, he's from Southern California. And she said, they're church planners.
Wow.
They're going to move back to Southern California. They're going to start a church that becomes a global movement. Wow. And my in-laws are like, that is the dumbest prophetic word we have probably ever heard. And no, they didn't say that. They came back, they were gracious, but they said, we got to talk to you. We got home, we had a kind of strange thing happen. And we were in their kitchen. I could tell you where I was sitting in their kitchen on the countertop. And they started telling us this thing, and it was like a water balloon popped.
Wow. Started
Started weeping. That was 2010. So we knew that was what we're going to leave one day. God has a promised land for us. It's not now. It's down the road. Almost probably felt like when you get married going, we're going to have kids one day, but we ain't anywhere close to that yet.
Right.
We have things we want to do before we have kids.
Yeah.
And so we just waited on God's timing. I think timing's a big deal. And I had a really vivid dream 2 years later that actually, I didn't know where we were going to go. I didn't know the name of our church. And I had a vivid dream on this big, wide, it was a 3-part dream. I won't bore you with all the details, but the first part of the dream, I was on a giant beach sandbar. There's a giant stage, line array speakers, huge LED wall. I'd say half the size of the Milestone LEDs wall, just a giant wall, about the size of a Dallas Cowboy Stadium, about their wall. But just giant wall, and my wife and I were on this massive stage, and there was maybe, I'm not trying to exaggerate, 100,000 people or maybe more on this beach, kind of like at the mall in DC, lining the coast. And there was a pier behind us, and we were on the stage. And the weirdest part of the dream, Pastor Jeff, was the moment it started, I knew I was dreaming. Usually when you're dreaming, you don't know you were dreaming till you wake up.
Right.
I knew as soon as the dream started, I was dreaming. And I felt like the cameraman, and thousands were getting baptized, and thousands of people were getting healed, like the book of Acts, blind eyes opening up. It was like revival. And I was on the stage, and kind of went over the huge crowd, and on the stage I said, God told us to come from Idaho to California to start a church. He gave us a dream. And the weirdest part was, as soon as I said on the stage, God gave us a dream, I leaned in like the cameraman, like, what was the dream? And I said, in the dream, God gave us the name of our church to call it Oceans Church, out of Isaiah and out of Habakkuk.
Wow.
For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea or the oceans. And so I said, that was the first time I ever heard Oceans Church, was from myself in the dream.
Wow.
And the weirdest part was, if I'm being honest with you, when you start a church, you tell everyone your story.
Yeah.
I had told this story a jillion times, but it wasn't until we started Baptize California, which was 2 years ago. We baptized 4,100 people at Pirates Cove, and we baptized 12,000 last year in Huntington Beach and in California. But it wasn't until we did the first year of it that I realized, I don't think that picture in the dream was an analogy for revival, which all those years I told the story, I thought it was an analogy for revival.
Yeah.
I actually think I saw a picture of the future. And now this week, I'm not sure when this recording will come out, but this week we'll be at Huntington Beach. We're anticipating 40,000 to show up this week. We'll baptize over 10,000 in one day, one location. Be the largest baptism in American history. But I think that even what I saw in my dream is beyond what's going to happen this week. I think that we're going to keep building it every year, but I think the day will come that we'll actually position the stage. The pier will be behind us at Huntington Beach. I saw it. So when our media guys, they said, we could do it at Huntington. They opened up their laptop 2 years ago.
You saw the picture.
And I said, I've seen that before.
Wow.
I saw that in 2012.
Wow.
When God gave us the name of our church.
So amazing.
So I know, I get it. I've told my pastor friends these stories. They're like, Mark, these are crazy stories. We don't usually have that. We just thought, where's there no good churches? And we start a church there.
Right.
I just think I had a hard head, and I'm not that smart. And God had to give me a lot of confirmations to make me do what he's asked me to do.
I want to go back though, because, a few people will plant a church, but there's a lot of people listening who maybe, they're being asked to start a youth ministry or a small group or a business or wherever they're at. But I think one of the things that I talk about a lot is vision is where you're going. It's that picture of a preferable future of where you're going.
Yep.
Strategy is how you get there.
Yep.
But this execution piece, right? Which I think if I were to say one of the big things that holds people back from ultimately winning, you have to have that vision piece.
Yep.
You have to be, there has to ultimately be a oceans. It has to be in California. We're going to have this atmosphere. We're going to have these baptized moments where what all the elements of it. But the execution piece, a lot of people get tripped up at the execution.
Yeah, for sure.
And timing is such a big part of that.
Yeah.
And you said something which I actually just like grabbed a hold of, like talking about timing, because I've said multiple times, when you get around great leaders, the combination of submission to God, working with counsel, submitting to others allows them to do, you can have the right thing at the wrong time.
Sabotage everything.
And you were just talking about that. So I've said, if you were to talk about great leaders and leadership or whatever, pastorship, timing is so big.
Huge.
Timing. And there's the timing of God. There's the Kairos moment. There's the Chronos timing. There's also allowing the process of God. We tend to be event, right? God's very process and seasonal.
100%.
And so I think that was a huge part of your story, because you did stay there
8 more years.
8 more years.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that sounds a lot more like the Bible, right? I mean, God, he's on time, but he's never early.
Right.
Never.
It's just kind of like, well, wait. So I think that's something for someone out there. No one's telling you necessarily no.
Yeah.
But God might be saying not now.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. I mean, there's a difference in no and not now.
100%. Well, I think even for us, our story was unique because at actually 6 years in, I mean, I felt like I was pregnant, and every year I'd go visit California, scout the land out. it was like romance. I get down there, I'm like, I'm ready to pastor this church today.
Right.
But I go back to Idaho and they say, hey, it's not quite yet, not ready yet. And I got to the point of 2016, my brother-in-law was taking the church. At this time, the church is 35 years old or something. He's taken over. Our youth ministry is real big youth ministry in our church. And he said, Mark, I know you've been waiting for these last 6 years. He says, I'll send you, like this year, I'll send you blessed. And I felt a little bit of, just a little bit, I could hear it in his voice, It's a story about when David said, I'm just thirsty. I wish I had some water from the well. And some of his best friends knew him so well that they were willing to sacrifice everything to get water for him because they knew the tone of his voice. And I knew Chris' voice. I said, Chris, if you could write our story of how I leave and when I leave, when would you want me to leave?
That's awesome.
And he said, Mark, to be honest with you, I think you guys leave, you're big leaders in our church. If you leave the same year that we take the church, that's a lot of rocking of the boat.
Right.
He said, if you'll stay an extra year or so, he said, I'll even send you more blessed in the future. And I said, Chris, I want this to be a win for you, and I want it to be a win for us. And he said something so profound. He said, Mark, if you'll make every decision on your transition with my best interest in mind, and I make every decision from my perspective with your best interest in mind, we'll do this transition better than anyone's ever done it.
So beautiful.
That's
and
amazing.
That's what we did. I waited another 2 years.
Amazing.
And I think there's two things. When you're young, ambitious, I think there's two perspectives. I saw a lot of my friends leave to start churches.
Yeah.
Great churches. And I saw a lot of them miss out on the joy of the last window of not being a lead pastor because of the obsession of the dream.
Yeah.
You can shift into, I can't wait to do this.
Yeah.
And then I realized there was a second option. I can have the option B, which goes, Lord, I want to enjoy this last window before it's gone.
Wow. Right.
When I moved to Idaho, my whole family followed me. So my daughters had both sets of grandparents, all of their cousins in a 10-mile radius. And I realized when we moved to California, this will be the last window of my family's life that will all be close like this. So rather than being motivated by my ambition, which I think all great leaders have good ambition, I had that drive, but instead of going, I can't wait, I wanted to have let's enjoy this while it lasts.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the difference between having a good attitude versus being in a hurry. And I do think the longer, we hear this all the time. My wife had 2 really bad pregnancies. We probably have a big family. I probably have 10 kids right now. So my wife can't keep her hands off me. But can you blame her? I'm just kidding. But no, we would have a bigger family. But my wife had 2 really hard pregnancies.
Right.
She had preeclampsia. She had hypertension. She was on bed rest for both girls for 3 months each.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like strict bed rest.
Right.
Hospital bed in the living room. And she got on bed rest right around week 21. And so, we know that when your wife gets pregnant, if your baby comes early enough, it's life-threatening.
Yeah.
And, we know the story of Abraham that, Abraham created all these problems in the Middle East, not because he didn't have a promised son, but because he tried to bring a promise to pass in his own strength,
Right.
in his own timing.
Right.
And I think for us, people they see some of the blessing that God's put on our church and whatever else we're doing. I think they think it's, you're only 6 years old and you guys bought this expensive building and there's a lot of cool things happening. But I would trace, what we're doing now, that
Right.
God made up the time, probably like your story, Pastor
Right.
Jeff, that God made up the time of you being a good son, going because you didn't leave early and take the easy road and you didn't dishonor your fathers to build your own field, but you actually stayed in the womb full term.
Yeah.
You came out healthier. I see a lot of my friends that start churches prematurely,
Right.
and they end up in a spiritual incubator.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's like they're in the NICU for the first 5 years of their church,
Yeah.
going, this thing's gonna die.
Wow.
We're just trying to keep it alive. We hate it. This is suffering. And I'm certainly not saying that every church that's suffering is premature, but I think for us, I think that we had a 10-pound baby
Yeah.
because we kept that turkey in there as long as we could.
Right.
Well, there's a real reality to the sending component.
Right.
You use the cliche, which I've used, we all use, being sent versus just went. And there is a spiritual authority when you go into an area, and especially if you're going to go into an area with those kind of principalities and
100%.
powers and
Right.
that missiological structure of
100%.
LA.
Yeah.
Right.
And every place has its own challenges and barriers. There's an authority there. And I know for me, that's what happened is I had this dream. I laid out a SWOT analysis, a plan, and my pastor leaned back in his chair and said, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And his word to me was, you're not running to something, you're running from something.
Yeah.
And so it was this idea that there's a greener pasture syndrome,
Yes.
you know, and that can also be at work as well.
100%.
Oh, I can't win in my youth ministry here or my children's ministry, but I will win when I'm in charge, which is a lie,
100%.
right? And so I think that leads you to this area, LA, you know, different missiological, you know, what do I mean by that? That's just the study of how to reach people. And so God, when you go with God's authority, you also get the keys to the kingdom that unlocks that on his behalf. I think something, though, I want to spend just a moment on this as well, because I think I meet a lot of pastors and God sent you to a certain context, okay? I pastored in a furniture store in a small a small town. I pastored in a Central Texas small church. I mean, I've pastored all contexts of people. I love people.
Sure.
So this isn't necessarily about, you know, one group is better than any group. You just have to go to the assignment that you're given.
100%.
But when you go to Orange County, you go to LA, you go to these areas, I think I want to say a few things about reaching people that are up and out, because you use the term, hey, God sent me to the up and out. And what is it about pastors? Because I have a passion for that. You know, I believe that's why I write about it. You know, the Way to Win book is a 38-week strategy to disciple business leaders to make them rich where they're poor.
Yeah.
Because riches, according to Scripture, is not the car you drive or the house you live in, right? So it's like, what can we do? And I believe pastors and spiritual people have this deposit to offer there. Or, you know, talking about win with people, being that shepherd, being that pastor. I want pastors to see, and I know there's probably some out there listening. What do I have to say to this person? You know, we can get intimidated.
Sure.
Like we can feel like I don't know how to. Why would they want to sit with me? And you need to change. They have to change their whole perspective. Like you're one of the most valuable pieces that they could ever have in their life.
100%.
One of the most successful guys in our area around here told me the other day. He said, you know, he just looked at me because I told him when he came to the church, he went to our membership class, and I said, you know, I don't expect you to trust me, but I look forward for the opportunity to be your pastor.
Yeah.
Guys, he's got tears in his eyes.
Yeah. Powerful.
And he's like, no one's ever told me that.
Yeah.
So tell me how you, or what you would offer to people. Maybe there's a young leader who's got an assignment where I've got to minister to these people older than me, or you got an assignment of people that have a different social structure or financial structure, like you going there because you've had some influence with your area. What are some of the thinking processes about how are you helping those people win? What value are you adding? Like, how have you approached that? What was your thought process?
Well, for me, I think I had to start figuring it out when I was starting pastoring a lot of these college football players.
Yeah.
I knew that when they were in college, I mean, when I was helping out the football team, they weren't making millions of dollars.
Right.
You know, some of these guys were getting busted for stealing sweats at Walmart because they were barely making it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I could be a blessing to those guys. I had more money than they did. I had a house. These guys were broke college students. So when they're in college, you know, you have this kind of advantage to offer them, like, hey, come out, we'll hang out, we'll grab some food, we'll hang out together. But when they got to the pros, and they're like, they don't need my help, they don't need a meal, these guys are doing great. And I realized that what do you offer someone that has a beautiful spouse, a beautiful house, that's on Sports Center, signs a giant contract.
Right.
What does some random dude in Idaho have to offer some guy that's playing in the Super Bowl? And I thought, man, I actually could be the one person in the world that is praying for their marriage.
That's good.
For
That's
their
really good.
babies,
Yeah.
for their career,
Yeah.
for their investments, and for the desires in their heart by name. And I realized that's what pastors do.
Yeah.
That's what makes us unique.
Yeah.
That we're going to God. You know, the Bible talks about, you know, Moses, Jethro. Jethro says, what's the job of a great pastor? And maybe some of the best advice for a pastor in the Old Testament is, he says, your job is to go to God on the behalf of the people, to bring the difficulties of the people before God, and to teach them the way they need to walk, the work they need to do. And I realized if I would go to God specifically and say, Lord, today I'm praying for my friend Jay, or I'm praying for my friend Jamar, or I'm praying for my friend, one of the guys, what can I pray for them today? And I would just listen to the voice, and God would give me a verse or something. I would send it to them.
Yeah.
And honestly, that, like to your point, it would make them rich. They would
Make
feel,
them rich,
man, that.
I would say stopping there, like you underestimate every person, no matter, and maybe even
Anyone.
more so if you're quote unquote successful, carrying pressure. Everybody needs encouragement. Just
100%.
an encouragement, praying, sending somebody a text,
100%.
telling them, man, I'm praying for you. Everybody's human. That's so huge.
Huge.
Right?
I had them all. So I started getting all the guys, we're going to read a chapter a day. And I'd send them the chapter we're reading. And I would send them my favorite verse of the day. So I started with 5 guys and 10 guys. And pretty soon, I mean, today, I've been doing it now. I think I've been doing this since 2007. I have 8 text threads, 30 guys in each thread. And I have one of them just dedicated to the NFL. And to this day, it's funny because now a lot of the guys are coaches in the NFL. They're retired, they're doing real estate now. Only a few of them are still in the league playing. But I send a verse to them every single day still. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. And I've been doing that for the last, 2007, you guys do the math on it, but a lot of years. Those guys are like, and I've had so many of them say, man, Mark, I just needed a word from God this morning. And that verse this morning you sent me. And so I've tried my best to be intentional with, I love, that's so much of what your message is about being a shepherd. That resonates in me. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the most gifted guy, but I'm like, I'll love you well. And I'll talk to God about you. And whatever he puts on my heart for you and your family, I'll share it with you.
There you go.
And I think that is more valuable because you're right. Most people in high places, everyone around them is leeching.
They want something from
They're
them.
absorbing.
This is one of those things that I noticed too is elders qualification, not fond of sordid gain. So if you don't have faith that God is your provider, then you can't lead successful people because everybody around them is leeching off of their success or faith or whatever it is. I mean, but someone that has spiritual authority, Jesus spoke as one having authority because we have Christ, then it's not about what they have, right? And so a person who's under the authority of Christ, you may be the one person also that gains the opportunity to tell them the truth.
100%.
Obviously, we tell them the truth in love. But I care about your soul.
100%. And that gets tested too. Because I mean, I remember even in the early days. I remember I'm like, man, I feel like I have to pastor this guy. He just signed a giant contract, doesn't go to our church. I'm not a lead pastor. But I'm like, look, I need to pastor this guy and go, hey, if you want God to bless your career, you put him first.
Put him first.
That means you find a local church. I gave him a list of churches he can check out in that city. And I said, you might not like this. You might not like me for saying this, but I think you need to give God a reason to bless your football career. You want to do that? One of the ways, not the only, but one of the ways, you find a local church, and I would tithe off of every dollar you make.
So good.
And I'm not going to preach anything to you that I don't live myself. I always tell people I don't sell anything that I don't smoke myself.
Good.
And I said, I would do that if I was you.
That's what I tell my kids.
Give God a reason to bless your life.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, I ruffled some feathers, but I think, a couple thoughts. You said something really profound last night, I believe with all my heart, is people can tell the difference when you want something from them or you want something for them.
It's really good.
And I think it's okay. There's a fine line, and I think in life, motive is there's such a thin line between a good motive and a bad motive. And I think every day we wake up as pastors and we go, God, let me never lose my pure motive.
Exactly.
It's really
that
good.
I'm not trying to manipulate. I'm not trying to get something from anybody. And I think that if our heart, we fight for that true north to go, God, I don't ever want to fall in love with the rich young ruler for his influence. The rich young ruler for what he can offer our church. I want to love him for what you have for him, not for what he can do for our church.
100%.
So good.
And I think God stops trusting us with rich young rulers.
That's really good.
When we sacrifice his truth to keep their love.
So good.
And so that gets tested sometimes.
It's really, that's a stewardship, right? Like God, people will ask you, I know, how do you get those kind of leaders in your church? And it's like, well, how are you stewarding the relationships you already have? Those conversations are difficult conversations. you might be the only one in their life who'll have that conversation
Yeah.
with them. So doing that is how God really opens those doors and allows those kinds of
100%.
leaders into your environment.
So to bring it full circle, so first of all, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for doing it right. Thank you for going to that area of the country where, of course, we hear the jokes and the stories and the whatever, right? But those are real people that God loves, and He cares about them. And, it is a beautiful place to suffer for Jesus.
It is.
Right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, but thank you for doing it right, and thank you for being a place that's preaching the gospel and baptize America and water baptizing people, which is what Jesus, before He ascended into the heavens, said is a big part of what we're supposed to do.
That's it.
Thank you for all of that. And I think the takeaway, because I always want to bring the takeaway back to the everyday person out there winning. Okay?
Yes.
What I hear, okay, is the faith and the trust in God to wait, to do it right, to prefer,
Yeah.
to submit. All those words they look great on paper.
Not real popular.
Not sexy.
No.
Yeah.
So faith, it's in the faith to trust God. If you're willing, whatever you compromise to get, you have to compromise to keep.
Yep.
So if you have the faith to do it God's way,
Yeah.
that's the same faith that you trust God anyway, so you don't have to manipulate team members, staff, resources, buildings, NFL players, whoever they are, because you've been trusting God the whole time anyway.
Yeah.
And so the takeaway for me for this, your life, the impartation, listening to you with these leaders is, hey, God is trustworthy. So let's trust Him. And He wants to give us big visions and dreams.
Yes.
He's still doing that. And if we would trust, we could win in a different dimension of winning.
Yes.
Like winning holistically.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Winning with your family, winning with your soul, winning with your integrity, winning with your relationship still with your brother-in-law. Does there have to be so much loss
Yes.
for somebody to win?
Yes.
And I see that happening with you, and we pray that God just continues to bless Ocean Church and everything you guys are doing, because God's doing amazing things. So thank you for being here with us.
Oh, it's my honor to be with you guys today.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
I want to thank both of you guys for the wisdom, inspiration, and a lot of practical things. I hope you out there watching took some of those practical things and will apply them. We want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Lead to Win podcast. We'll see you next time.
I want to say thank you for checking out this episode of the Lead to Win podcast. I want you to know that I love and my team loves getting this kind of content into your life so it can help you lead and win at what matters most. So I'd love for you to do me a favor, like, comment, especially subscribe if you would, so that we can make sure that we're able to get to you some of the things that are going to help you lead to win.